Welcome to our Parent Learning Club webinar. My name is Dr. Blaise Ryan. This webinar is on the 15 essential childhood needs. So on this webinar, what you're going to learn are the root cause of child misbehaviors, the 3 main levels of child development needs, the 15 needs, and the democratic parenting approach to meeting these needs in a balanced way without exhausting ourselves. So first off, who am I? What makes me an expert in child behavior, and why should you even listen to me? Well, my name is Dr. Blaise Ryan. I'm a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine. That means I treat the root cause of disease, not just the symptoms. And when I became a father myself, my training led me to question the standard approaches to parenting, from the old school authoritarian approach to the modern day permissive approach. And I asked myself, might there not be a better way, an easier, less stressful way on both parent and child? And my research led me to discovering the democratic parenting methods and to starting the Parent Learning Club, which is an online portal devoted to promoting the education of democratic parenting methods and non-punitive style of parenting, more positive approach to parenting, and healthy lifestyle for children and parents around the world. And I'm the director of Child Brain Health, the author of Democratic Parenting, and the creator of the ADD Transformation Program, which is a natural way to overcome the symptoms and behaviors of ADD and ADHD without medications or drugs. So how does democratic parenting work? This is important for us to consider when we're discussing these needs. So democratic parenting goes after the root cause of behavioral issues, the underlying legitimate needs. You see, when the need that causes a behavior is met, then the behavior stops almost instantly. It's like as if the behavior is a fire and the needs is the wood, okay, that's fueling the fire. So as soon as we take away the wood, as soon as we meet the need, then it's like there's no more fuel for the fire to burn and the misbehavior stops. Like I said, almost instantly. The amazing thing about children is that they can bounce back and they can adjust themselves much quicker than adults. So we can see changes and shifts in their behaviors much faster than we do most of the time as adults. They're very resilient, very buoyant, and very adaptable if we can give them the space to be so. And the way to give them the space is to meet these needs that we're going to be talking about. Now, most parents meet all of the needs we're going to be talking about, but to varying degrees. Sometimes, though, the need is what I call overfilled, right? When we see this oftentimes with helicopter-style parenting, where certain needs, like the child's need for connection and maybe safety, might be overfilled. There's too much emphasis on those needs, while other needs continue to be starved. Okay, and when a need is left unmet for too long, then it will overflow. The drive to have that need met is so strong, the child will start to behave in whatever way he or she might feel will allow them to have that need met. The democratic parenting methods include ways to meet all of your child's needs in a balanced way, in a more easy way, in a way that you can fit into your regular schedule without running yourself too thin or exhausting yourself. The result is that your child will become more trusting, more relaxed, more calm, alert, and full of zestful cheer, okay? Because when their fundamental underlying needs are met, then they'll have no need to rebel, resist, defy, and they will trust you. They'll be calm. They'll feel safe and secure because everything is being met. And if you meet all their needs, that's the foundation of trust. It's just like if you are an employee and your boss or the organization that you're working for is meeting all of those needs that you require to get from your career, your work opportunity, then you're going to feel very content there, and you're going to trust any changes in direction that your employer might provide for you because they've built up this trust for so long by meeting your deep fundamental needs. Democratic parenting focuses on what I call a root cause philosophy. So this is based on the concept I call the roots and the fruits. So imagine you had a tree, like an apple tree. Okay, the apples are the fruits. These are what you see. These are the symptoms that come out. These are the behaviors that we see, or the problems that we encounter, or the results that show up in our life. Now the roots is what you don't see, okay? Those are underneath the ground. You don't see the roots. But these are the causes, okay? And these are the reasons behind the behaviors, the motivations behind those behaviors, or the causes behind the results that we're seeing. So, imagine if you had an apple tree and the apples were all coming up rotten, okay? And you asked your neighbor and you said, I don't know what to do about my apple tree. All the apples that are showing up are rotten. And your neighbor says, well, that's easy. Just go to the grocery store. They have a sale right now on a bushel of apples. Get some nice shiny red apples from the store. Bring them back. Take off the rotten ones and just glue on all these shiny red apples from the store, and you'll have an apple tree filled with beautiful red shiny apples, and your problem is solved. Well, that sounds like ridiculous advice, right? Because it doesn't solve the underlying problem. After those shiny red apples that you glue onto the tree are no good, then the new apples that are going to come up are still going to be rotten because we didn't address the problem at the root. We didn't fix the root cause of the problem. But this is exactly the same way that many parents and even doctors and even many child psychologists and child therapists recommend parents to approach their child behavior, focusing on the behavior itself, the fruit, rather than addressing the underlying root cause, which are the needs. Okay, so first off, let's talk a little bit about these fruits. What are the behavioral problems that we're encountering? What is your fruit list, the list of issues and problems that you're facing with your own child, or perhaps you're a teacher that you're facing in your classroom with your children? So write down right now on a piece of paper some of the problems. What's your fruit list, the behavioral issues that you're facing right now? This is an important step when we're looking at the underlying needs, because then we can start to connect the problems, the fruits, to the underlying needs, the roots. So write that down right now. If you're on this live webinar right now, you can share some of your fruits with us. Just type them in the chat box. What are some of the problems, behavioral issues that you're facing with your child that you want to use these democratic parenting methods to help overcome? So go ahead and share those with us right here, or if you're listening to the recording at home, you can just write them out yourself at this point in time. You can pause the recording and write down some of the problems, the behaviors that you're facing. And feel free to share them with us here on the webinar. Okay, so some common ones that we have from people are aggressive behavior from children. Kids that don't listen. When we ask them to do something, they just turn away from us and do the exact opposite, sometimes looking at us doing the exact same thing that we ask them not to do, okay, like oppositional defiance, poor attention, not listening, hitting siblings, throwing things, picky eaters, children who are timid or withdrawn, not socially interactive, tantrums, throwing tantrums, temper tantrums. Great. So these are all very common problems, different fruits, different behaviorals, the results, the issues that we're seeing that are manifesting, that are appearing before us, that we're facing. These are the fruits, okay? So let's look at the roots. What's the roots behind all these fruits? What's the underlying cause? So the foundation of the democratic parenting work is to look at these 3 reasons for misbehavior. And these are the 3 fundamental underlying reasons behind all human behavior. This is based upon modern psychology, and we can see that the first one are role models. Okay, these are influences, different models of behaviors that your child will see and model. You see, children are natural born models. That's how they learn how to walk and talk and behave. That's how they learn how to relate. That's how they learn how to communicate, by modeling the examples in the world around them. Now, the primary role models for children are parents. Okay, and here we have, I'm going to go through 6 different types of role models that influence a child nowadays. We have the parents, those are the primary role models. And with that, we can see just what a huge responsibility we all have as parents, knowing that we are the primary role model for our kids. Now, I always say that, no matter what we do, children will always inherit both the best parts of us and the worst parts of us, right? No matter what we do, right? They naturally inherit our best traits and our worst traits, okay? So the key, obviously, is that if we want our children to be better off than us and not have to face some of the same internal and external struggles that we face, we want to try and better ourselves, to improve ourselves, to be a better model to our children, because they're going to watch and model what we do much more than listen to what we say and do what we say, especially when they see us doing the opposite of what we say. It's very often children get entirely frustrated, and with teenagers, they simply stop even listening to their parents when they see their parents being hypocrites around specific type of behavior. And children are quick to recognize any type of hypocrisy, right? If we tell a child they can't do something and they see older children do it or adults do it, they feel a sense of injustice, okay? So especially when it comes to types of behavior and communication and relationship, we want to be the model for them, the best model we can possibly be. And the only way to do that is to better ourselves in the best way that we feel that we can. The other influence in child's lives and their behavior are siblings and other family members. So parents and siblings and family members, this is like the inner circle of influence. And as we step outside the inner circle, we go outside the home and we encounter peers and friends. Now these might be friends and peers at school or in the community, in the where you live, in the housing complex, other sports areas, extracurricular activities. These also influence children, and they might see certain kids doing different types of behavior, and they might try that behavior on. And that might be the reason why they're behaving certain ways. And then we have other adults. Could be teachers in school or other adults in the community, okay? And then as we step outside the influence of people, we can see how children are influenced by characters in books, in stories, in TV, or on media, in video games. Even those characters and their how they act can influence children. In the movies, right, many children are strongly influenced by the heroes, the hero character in movies. And the hero character is meant to actually trigger a lot of some of the emotional struggles that the children and all of us experience in life, so that we can create a type of connection, a relationship, and really feel the struggle that the hero is going through. And then as the hero goes through the movie and the story, they overcome their problems and they become a success. And then these types of emotions get transferred onto children very young. And they'll tend to oftentimes model some of the behavior they see, just in a sense of trying it on. Oftentimes children do this in a way to try and process the experience that they have by watching these movies or videos. And also toys, the type of toys that kids play with, or the actual physical characteristics of toys. And we can see this how, there's controversy around the Barbie toys for girls and how it affects their self-esteem and their body image of having these disproportionate Barbies with very thin waistlines and very large breasts and long legs, which are impossible for humans to actually look like that, and how that will affect growing girls around their self-image, which is very a big issue for a lot of girls and teenage girls as well. So we can see how toys also influence children's behavior. So these are the 6 types of role models that influence a child. So this all falls under modeling behavior, okay? One of the 3 reasons for misbehavior. The next reason for misbehavior is stress. And stress is one of the most common causes of all types of misbehavior. And I talk about this at great length in my webinar on childhood stress disorder, also my book. So I'm just going to go through this quickly just to touch on it. We have 4 main causes of childhood stress. We have aggressive stress, which is a very tangible kind of aggressive, violent stress, like from hitting or pushing or fighting or any type of physical abuse, or even scolding, berating can be a type of aggressive stress. Next, we have passive stress. Now, passive stress is very relevant to this webinar because passive stress is really caused by the pressure of unmet needs. And this webinar is all about the childhood needs. So if any of these needs that we're going to be discussing today go on for too long, then this type of passive stress begins to build up in the child because they're feeling that something is missing, their needs are not being met, and this type of low-level anxiety or stress will start to take over their body, okay? So that's really important to realize, is that passive stress is a big cause of behavior. Now, the passive stress will diminish and eventually go away as soon as these unmet needs are met, okay? And then when you meet these, then the stress will diminish as they feel the relief and the contentment that comes from having these needs met. Then situational stress. Now, these are types of stressors which are really nobody's fault, just environmental stressors that happen, like, for example, moving houses, a new school, divorce, death in the family or death of a pet, accidents, natural disasters, even wars and type of things. These are all different types of situational stress. And then birth stress, okay, this is like any type of birth trauma caused during birth or shortly after birth or during pregnancy. These types of things can also affect a child's behavior. So these are the 4 causes of childhood stress. And stress, again, is one of the 3 main reasons for any type of child behavior. Finally, we go on to the 3rd reason, perhaps the number 1 reason for misbehavior, which are legitimate unmet needs. And we call them legitimate because they're very real, they're essential, okay? And now here, let's take a look to understand what makes them legitimate is that they're different from wants, okay? Oftentimes people need to take a moment to really look at the difference between a need and a want, because children are often expressing their want, but they have a very hard time expressing their underlying need. In fact, many adults have a hard time expressing their deep underlying needs. Many adults often aren't even very clear what they want in their life and in various relationships and circumstances. Oftentimes, it's a big cause of adult depression or midlife crisis is this not really knowing what they want. Children are usually a lot more clear on what they want, but are not always so clear on how to express what they need. Same again with adults. They're often less clear on what they want and just as equally disabled to express what they need, okay? And we can see this very clearly, especially when there's intimate or personal relationship issues between husband and wife, mom and dad, or intimate partners around trying to express what they really need in a way that is more neutral. Dialogue is very difficult for people to do, okay? And this is simply because this type of open, honest, deep level communication, talking about what we need, about what we feel, about what we want, is not something that's taught in our schools. It's not something that's really encouraged in our culture either, mostly because our education system is focused more on production and creating workers in the societal environment to keep the economy going. That's the main focus of the entire public education system. So it doesn't really focus on some of these deep underlying psychological and emotional needs, what we're going to talk about today. So the difference between a need and a want. So we have a want or a desire. So let's just look at a couple examples here. So imagine like a broken cookie, okay? We see this can happen very often in kids. Almost every parent I know has gone through this experience where they might have a cookie or some type of treat, and especially if there's multiple kids around them, and one of the cookies is broken, then the other kids get whole cookies. Now, the amount of cookies is the same for each child, but the child with the broken cookie might throw a big fit, might be upset and saying they want a full cookie, they don't want a broken cookie, and that seems to be what they're upset about, right? So but that's just the want, that's just the desire. We call this the broken cookie phenomenon, actually. And this means that the child has a big freak out, a big cry, big emotional upset over something seemingly small, something that doesn't seem that relevant, okay? And that's the broken cookie. The reason they have a big freak out about this is that there's a deeper underlying need below that, okay? So something else, maybe some accumulated stress or something, and they're taking this opportunity, this sense of injustice, to just release that tension and just kind of vent it all out. But the issue is not the broken cookie, okay? That's what they want. That's their desire. But the underlying need, there could be a variety of need, but for example, one of them might be a sense of just a need for equality, right? Feeling like the need for fairness or the need to feel connected. Sometimes they might feel disconnected from the rest of the group because all the other kids have whole cookies, so they somehow feel a bit isolated. Okay, so there could be different needs involved. Sometimes children will cry and beg and throw a fit just to get a new toy. The fundamental need that's being expressed might be just appropriate stimulation, okay? Or new fashion, okay? And again, this could be a fashion of clothes, but it could just be the latest toy that's fashionable in school now amongst the kids, and all the child's classmates have this toy or this piece of clothing, and your child also wants that, and they seem to be really obsessed about it. Now that's their want, that's their desire. They don't need that new thing, right? They definitely don't need it. But what they're expressing is perhaps their need for attention, or again, their need for connection, to feel connected to their other peer group who all have that toy. Okay, and then for example, they might say they want a sugar treat, right? Some type of treat or sugar. That's their expression of their desire, their want. Okay, they don't always need that. What they might be expressing there is a need for healthy nutrition. Their body might need some nourishment, some energy, and that's what they're trying to express through watching this sugar treat. Okay? So how many needs are there? Well, there are lots. You know, I've gone through a lot of different psychological papers and research on human needs, and there's lots of different ones out there. But I found a lot of them aren't that practically relevant. Some of them are missing some important ones, and a lot of them are more abstract, so they weren't very easy for parents to use. So what I did is I isolated 15 essential needs. Okay, now these are divided into 3 different levels. So the first level are needs around physical well-being. Okay, that's around your health, your body, and then the needs around social connection and social belonging, right? Because humans are social creatures, and so are children. We need to feel connected with those around us and feel that we have a place and that we know where we belong, and that's very important for our overall well-being. Next, we have psychological well-being, right? The evolution and advancement of our mind and our mental faculties. This is extremely important for our development. So let's go through these 15 essential needs. I'm going to just list all of them out at first so you can just get an overview. Then I'm going to go into each one and talk about each one individually. So under the physical well-being needs, we have the need for affection. We have the need for healthy nutrition, the need for exercise, the need for good sleep, the need for safety and security. So you can see all of these 5 needs are things that are body needs, right? Our physical body needs, our physiology needs in order to be healthy and well functioning, right? And our body needs to be in a healthy state in order for our mind and our emotions to work well as well. Okay, next we have our social connection needs, right? This is our need for connection with those around us, first off and foremost. Then we have need for information, which really has to do around communication and knowing what's going on in the world around us and with other people. The need for encouragement, right? Very important, not only for children, but also adults. And this has a lot to do around recognition and acknowledgement, all falls under that. The need for contribution, right? That's participation, meaning, and the need for attention. Very obvious one right there. And then finally, we have our psychological well-being needs. This is the need for challenge, for appropriate stimulation, the need for autonomy, right? The self to have power, a sense of personal power, the need for creative expression and fun, the need for predictability and consistency, and the need for processing and healing all fall into that. Okay, so this is an overview of these 15. Let's dive into each one. We'll go through them all. So under physical well-being, we have the need for affection. So here I'm talking about physical affection, right? This is talking about hugs and snuggles and touch. And this all basically falls under the realm of like healing, okay? And sensory expressions of love. And there were some experiments done, I think in the 20s, where they had these orphans in Italy. And they took one group of baby orphans, and they didn't give them any physical affection. They didn't hug them or touch them or anything. And what they found that within a very short period of time, these poor children got very ill and were close to the point of dying just without physical affection. All of their other needs, their physical needs around nutrition and sleep were being met, but without having that physical affection, they were soon wilting. So this is incredibly important. So it's important that all children get this. And this is something a lot of parents have absolutely no problem meeting, is this physical affection. So next we have healthy nutrition, very obvious, clear need. But in our modern time, when we live in a world with a lot of inexpensive food in large grocery stores, a lot of the food that's marketed to the masses is very nutrient deficient, okay? And that's why we have a lot of childhood obesity and childhood diabetes that is on the rise, because even though there seems to be more food than ever and a lot of children and adults are eating a lot of this food is missing the essential nutrients and vitamins and enzymes and antioxidants that we all need to be healthy. Okay, and I've seen a lot of children with very difficult behavioral issues like ADD and even autism-type behaviors are throwing tantrums and freakouts at the drop of the hat. By making some healthy adjustments in their nutrition made all the difference to help them feel more stable. And children who are sensitive to specific types of food like gluten and whatnot, or sugar, some kids are very sensitive to that and they might end up getting aggressive or a bit out of control when they eat too much of this, and this is a sign that they need more healthy nutrition. So my advice to everyone is just to keep it natural and simple. Okay, there's lots of different information on the internet and books and stuff about healthy ways to eat, and there's cookbooks and stuff for eating healthy for kids. So there's lots of information out there, and I'm just going to go over just some basics about how to live a healthy, nutritious diet and lifestyle for your kids. So just keep it natural as possible, and simple. Often children prefer simple foods than complex meals. Okay, give them foods that are alive, like fresh fruits and vegetables. And you want to make sure they stay hydrated with pure water. Okay, and you want to reduce sugar, additives, preservatives, colorings, and chemicals. Okay, all of these have been shown through research to affect child behavior, and especially children with ADD type behaviors where there's a bit more research done on them. They found that these behaviors can actually increase with ingesting sugar and additives and these types of things. So these are known things that can really affect a child's behavior. Okay. Next we go into the physical need of exercise. Okay, this is something kids and adults need, and oftentimes it's just taken for granted. We don't realize how important it is for a child's development to get adequate physical exercise. So kids who seem antsy or hyperactive and have a hard time sitting still in long classes, oftentimes what they just need is to move more. And again, especially when we compound this unmet need with perhaps the unmet need of health and nutrition, and we feed them sugar-filled cereals that don't have much long sustainable nourishment in them, like Cocoa Puffs or Fruit Loops or something like that. And that's what they start their day with, a really big boost in sugar that doesn't have any sustainable energy, and then they're thrown into a classroom for hours to just sit down. They want to move that energy that they got from the blast of sugar around, but they're unable to because they have to sit still in class. That can really affect their attention and their ability to concentrate because they have all the sugar moving through their system, and there's this unmet need for exercise at the same time. So if we meet all these needs on these different levels, we'll find that children are much better behaved overall. So the need for exercise. So simple way to just get good exercise is to just focus on moving around. Okay, it doesn't really matter how you move as long as you move your body. Your body was made to move. The muscles were made to move around, right? Our body was not physically constructed to sit down at desks for a long period of time, even though that seems to be the way that the modern world works. But as we can see with the rise in stress levels and diabetes and all types of health and mental health issues that are on the rise in all of the modern worlds, where people spend a lot more time sitting and a lot less time exercising, we can see how important it is to keep the body moving, to keep the circulation going, and this allows for oxygenation on all levels of our body and our brain and keeps us healthy. Also, we want to stretch, right? We want to stretch our muscles, we want to stretch our body. We also want to stretch our limits, right? So doing type of exercise or activities that allow us to stretch beyond our personal limits, especially our physical limits, is incredibly empowering and enriching on all levels of our being. Sweating is a very healthy way to purify ourselves, to keep the pores healthy and the skin healthy. So we want to do a type of exercise that creates sweat, it creates deep breathing and cardiovascular workout, and that it affects our balance and agility. So it doesn't matter what type of exercise your kids get, as long as they get all of these key features of good exercise. They move around, they get to stretch, they sweat, they get some deep breathing and cardio, and it also affects their balance and their agility and coordination, right? So you can see that almost any type of exercise or activity that your child does will give them this, whether it's an organized type of sport thing where they play on a sports team like soccer or a football or anything like that, baseball, or if they do an individual type of sport like rock climbing or or some type of martial art or something like that, whether it's more of a self-discipline thing, or if you just go climbing, exploring in nature, go on a hike, or if kids just play around in their backyard, run around and play hide and seek or jump on the trampoline. These are all great ways for children to get their exercise. Okay, the next physical need we have is around good sleep, right? And this is, there's more and more research that shows that oftentimes the misbehaviors that we see on the rise for child behavior, a lot of it comes from the fact that children don't get enough good sleep. And this a lot has to do with our lifestyles of living overly full, hectic, busy lifestyles where we end up getting to bed too late and having to get up extremely early in order to catch a long bus ride to school, and for the parents to get out the door and get to work on time. And oftentimes children are really tired in the morning, and if they didn't get to bed early enough, then they start to miss sleep. And a couple of nights of missing sleep often isn't a big deal, but when it becomes a chronic issue, on weeks and weeks and months of not having enough sleep, it is going to affect their thinking, their judgment, and their physical health, and also their behavior, okay? So don't underestimate the power of good sleep. So you want to make sure they get enough hours of sleep. You want to make sure they have a good quality of sleep, and that they feel restful from sleeping as well, okay? And next we have security and safety. Again, this is a physical well-being need. It could also be a psychological need as well, the sense of being safe and secure. I put it under the physical well-being because physically our bodies need to be free from pain and hurt, okay? And that brings us into the definition of fear, okay? This is basically counteracts fear and anxiety. If you meet the child's need for security and safety, they won't have as much fear or anxiety. So the definition of fear is really the anticipation of pain, okay, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. That sense of anticipating pain is what fear really is. So when you meet their need for security, you will remove this sense of anticipation of pain, okay? And most of the parents do a wonderful job meeting this sense of security and safety. But sometimes it is, just if you're moving around a lot, if you're on the road, if you have to travel for work a lot and your child's going with you for a long time, then this might be a need, the sense of security. The child doesn't really know how long they're going to be in one place, when they're going to move next. That sense of security might be a little bit unmet. So we might have to spend a little extra time and energy to make sure that that need is properly fulfilled for our children. So these are the 5 physical needs that we need to meet for our children, right? We have the need for affection, the need for healthy nutrition, need for exercise, for good sleep, safety, and security. A lot of these are straightforward, and most parents meet these needs in a very good way. Sometimes just a little bit of adjustment here and there will help us meet these needs to a fuller extent, which can make all the difference for children. Let's go into the next need. The next need is around social connection, okay? So social connection. So this is the sense of connection. Now, the first need is obviously connection, right? The sense of belonging, of feeling connected, knowing our place in our social group. And the key here is the child's sense of connection, right? Not if you feel connected to your child, but how much your child feels connected to you and to their environment, to their family, okay? So this really, the reason why this is so important, this is almost the mother of all needs, especially for children, is because children are innately dependent on adults for their very survival, right? Their survival is dependent upon how connected they are to the adults around them. And this is a deep inherent trait in children. And that's why That's why anything that threatens their sense of connection basically will be a cause of stress for them, because they'll feel that their survival is also threatened as well. Okay, so it's the child's sense of connection. So even if you, for example, if you have a toddler you're playing with, and then you're in the playroom, and you're right there with the toddler, and the toddler knows that you're there, and then they get involved in playing with a specific thing or a toy, and then you just go into the other room to take care of some laundry, and you move away so quietly, they don't realize that you're not there. And then suddenly they look up and they see that you're gone and that they don't see you in the room. They might feel suddenly very disconnected and all alone. And this could be a cause for them to have a big cry all of a sudden. And then you rush into the room, and then that restores their sense of connection. So you say, well, why did they cry when you left the room? Well, the thing is that even though you knew that you were still connected to them, that you could hear them and know if they're going to get into trouble or moving along, you knew that they were safe there, your sense of connection was secure, their sense of connection was broken. That's a really key one to remember, because oftentimes we can get really wrapped up in our own lives and our own responsibilities. We sometimes take it for granted, the experience of children and how they see the world and how they feel in the world. So it's really more around their sense, around social belonging. Okay, a key thing in terms of bridging disconnect between children, between you and other children, is to create eye contact. So when you get eye contact, that's an immediate connection. Okay. Also, smiles are a great way, or laughter is a wonderful way, and that's why one of the main methods we use in democratic parenting is what I call natural giggles, is because that's a way to bridge connection very quickly. Right? There's an old proverb that says that laughter is the shortest distance between two people, and that's so true. And that's why laughter and smiling and eye contact and even physical touch and using a loving, caring, compassionate tone of voice can go so far in bridging sense of connection. And that's why I mention all of these, because when we get into some of the democratic parenting methods later on, we'll talk about the connective communication method, which is one of the most powerful tools that we have as democratic parents, is the way to communicate that bridges connection. And that's using some of the things I just mentioned around the tone of voice and eye contact and physical touch. And the reason why the sense of connection is so powerful and important, especially to maintain in the early childhood years, is that when children get older and more involved with their peers, the risk of peer pressure will diminish the greater they feel connected to you and their home and their family environment, right? Because the peer pressure happens when a child seeks this need for connection from their peers, and they will only seek that and do things that they might normally not do, or which it might not be from a place of very good or clear judgment, if they're driven by a deeper unmet need, which is their need to connect with others, right? If their need for connection is unmet, then that need will be driving them and will be this major motivating force, and will basically overrule their sense of better judgment, especially when it comes around peer pressure. The next important need for social connection is the need for information. Okay, so this really has to do around communication. It's just about talking and communicating with your children, and this is such an important need to meet. And oftentimes it's just a matter of talking a little bit more and explaining things a little bit more about kind of sharing your plan and your intentions and some ideas, and just engaging your child in communication and open dialogue around the things that you're doing. And that meets many needs. It meets the needs for information. It also meets their needs for contribution, participation, and connection by just talking and communicating openly with them. It also reduces confusion. When children feel confused, they automatically feel disconnected from the world around them, because things don't make sense. They don't know where things belong, and they don't know how to figure out. They don't feel connected to the world when they're confused. So information reduces confusion, and then it helps them function better in the world. It also gives them predictability, right? If you can give them information, then they know how things are going to go, right? If you don't communicate to them that you're going to be leaving in half an hour, and your child's engaged in doing some activity at home, and they're really into this process and playing the game with their brother or sister or even by themselves, and all of a sudden you just say, okay, we have to go somewhere, and we have some errands to run. But you didn't give them the information beforehand. They might have a big fit because they feel, well, that's not fair. I was totally engaged in this game here. I didn't know we were going to go somewhere, and they feel like what is important to them doesn't matter, and that breaks their need for autonomy as well, and that they don't feel as respected. So by giving them the information helps to prevent some of these things. And this is a really great thing to really focus on for any parents who might be dealing with challenges around different transitions, whether it's transitions in the morning time to get out the house into school, to go to school on time, or to get to bed, from dinner to bed, or to get children to do homework, after school, and helping them transition to different things is to give them information beforehand and just kind of let them know that this is what's going to happen, and then we're going to do this, and then so we're going to go home, and then you got half an hour to play, and then you got to do your homework, and then after you finish your homework, then you can play a little bit more, then we're going to have dinner, and just kind of giving them information, the play-by-play, and then that gives them predictability about how things are going to go. And if there's changes in plans, which always does happen, is just to give them the information, to share that with them, okay? Now, another important thing to remember is that for really young children, they can't always remember rules, okay, or things that you want them to remember, right? For example, if a 3-year-old walks in from outside with rubber boots on and trucks mud all over the floor, okay, to get upset at them because they truck mud all over a clean floor is not really taken into consideration that their need for information is at such a point that they are too young to be held responsible to remember all these rules all the time, okay? Older children will remember that they need to take their boots off and their shoes off, but for really young children or toddlers, we can't expect them to remember that, right? That's why we need to give them this information when they come in the door. We can't expect them to remember this information. So their need for information is dependent upon their age, and we have to be really careful with this need and responsible with this need. A big mistake a lot of parents make is giving their kids too much information, okay, and then they have to process all types of information, oftentimes information which is way beyond their ability to comprehend because we're talking about maybe more mature or complex subject matters. Sometimes children might kind of go, yeah, as if they understand, but they might not be processing it at all, and it might just add to the degree of overstimulation and too much stuff that they need to process, and might actually diminish their ability to kind of think clearly. And then you'll see a lot of children kind of just get stuck on being right, and we see this a lot of times at certain age, different age groups where children will get into like playing games around who's right and who's wrong around specific type of information because they get so attached and hooked to the importance of right and wrong information. So we don't want to go down that road because it's really not about being right. It's about being connected and loving and supportive and happy at the end of the day. And and there's the right and wrong is not always so clear cut. There are certain principles that we all want to live by, and we can hold those as being strong principles in our lives. But we always sometimes need to be a little bit flexible with certain rules based upon different circumstances when the unknown or the unpredictable comes into play. Okay. So we need to be responsible with the information, give our children enough information, but we don't want to overwhelm them with information because we want to keep the door open for their own sense of wonder to explore the world and to discover things for themselves, to discover things and to come up with questions about certain things, to think more openly and critically about things rather than get fixated on just kind of being fed information and taking all the information at face value without questioning it or looking deeper into it. Okay, the next important need for social connection is around encouragement. Okay, so this is really important. All children need to be encouraged because they're much smaller and they're learning things all the time. And same thing with adults, right? If we're growing in our adulthood, that's because we're always learning new things. And as we learn new things, we're bound to make mistakes. And that's really how we learn, right? That's how a baby, a crawler, learns how to walk. First they start to stand up and then they fall, right? And how many times does a baby fall before they learn how to walk on their feet? Lots of times. Maybe over 100 times, maybe 1,000 times before they really get it right. And so they need to be encouraged as they do this, right? And that it's through the encouragement that they get the inspiration to keep on trying. Now, a young toddler and young baby, they don't need much encouragement. They'll do it on their own anyways because they see they're modeling the world around them and they want to be like the bigger people around them that take care of them. They want to emulate them. But as the children get older, as they learn more complex things and they're facing bigger and more intellectual problems and challenges or maybe social issues, the more encouragement we can give them, the stronger the sense of connection there is, and the deeper the sense of trust and respect. So as they get older and perhaps in their teenage years and start to face more critical issues that might come up, then they will know that by coming to us and by sharing their problems with us, they're going to get the encouragement, inspiration, or maybe advice, or maybe insight that they need, okay? But if we're always lecturing them and telling them what to do, telling them what's wrong, it's very discouraging, okay? And it makes them feel more like a failure, and a lot of fear and stress will overtake their system, and they won't look at you as being somewhere they can turn to for a safe, open advice, especially with more complex issues where they are not even clear themselves about all the different aspects of the challenge they might face, which is often the case, especially when they get into teenage years and they're working with social issues or more complex life challenges. Okay, but by giving them encouragement, you give them the freedom to make mistakes. You open the door to learning, and you help them learn how to overcome challenges themselves. Okay, and we really foster the attitude of applying effort to things and to persevere through things. You know, we live in an age where instant gratification is really encouraged, right? We have an infinite amount of information at our fingertips with the internet, and so much stimulation and entertainment in every direction that we want, and and almost anything that we can possibly want to buy is available to us. So this urge towards instant gratification is so strong, and this type of throwaway culture has also kind of been embedded into the modern world, that oftentimes when we face difficult challenges and problems, it's not, we don't always feel the same level of encouragement to persevere through it, right? We wonder sometimes, especially with young children, they might think, well, why should I apply the effort? Why should I persevere through that when when everything else is so easy for me? So what we want to do then is to encourage them to apply that deeper effort, to figure a way through the challenge. And some children might just break down and cry and say, I can't do it, I don't know how to do it, it's too hard, right? And they're just venting and complaining. We need to look at that, from a sober perspective, again, looking at the deeper needs rather than getting locked onto the behavior of them saying that things are hard. We look at the deeper needs. Sometimes children just need to vent, right? Just like adults need to vent. Oftentimes, how many times have you felt yourself just kind of discouraged and despondent by different challenges and the weight of different responsibilities in your life, and the thing that helped you the most was just kind of venting your problems to a friend or something like that, and then that kind of gave you the insight. As maybe you're venting them and sharing your issue, you came up with the solution yourself, right? Or sometimes just letting it out was all you need to do. So we don't always need to give children answers. Just like when we're venting an issue, we're not always seeking advice. We just need an ear, someone to listen to us. And by giving our children the ear, that is giving them the encouragement. Just encouraging them to find the solution to themselves. So if a child's struggling with something and you feel that they might be able to do it themselves, to just kind of encourage them to keep at it. Even though you might be able to step in, solve the solution for them right then and there, you encourage them to do it. For example, a child who's learning how to tie their shoelaces, and perhaps they already did it several times before and they're quite good at it. But one morning maybe there's a couple of other issues that have come up, that maybe they might be stressed because of different things that happened, or some other unmet needs, or maybe making their patience a little less thin, and they're struggling that morning with their shoelace, and they start to vent to you, and so you begin encouraging them. They might have a big cry, they might break out a tantrum because they're saying they can't do it, even though you can do it, right? And that's another example of the broken cookie phenomenon, where they have a big freak out or cry over a seemingly small thing. And again, that's a sign that they're using that issue, that challenge, as a way to vent some deeper underlying feelings, which is a very positive thing, because when they can get those deeper underlying feelings and tension out, then their system is clear to kind of approach things from with clear thinking and good judgment. Okay, so by encouraging them, we really kind of teach them how to apply efforts and to overcome challenges, and how to persevere through things, and how to really learn and be more creative problem solvers and more adaptable in life, which are some of the most important traits in the modern world that we live in. The next important social need is around contribution. Okay, this really has to do around participation and teamwork and a sense of social belonging, also a sense of meaning. It's really the antidote to depression, right? And with depression on the rise for adults and youth, okay, the more meaning that we can have in our lives, the better we're going to feel about ourselves. And this really comes around giving, around contributing to others, right? The sense of participation. And so participating in the family or within your social group, in the school, in the classroom, is incredibly rewarding on so many levels. It makes us really feel like we have a place where we belong. And a lot of times, children start to struggle, and they will resist and defy and rebel against chores or helping out at home, because they don't feel that sense of teamwork, or they don't feel like they're participating. They feel like they're being told what to do, that they have to do these things, and they don't really feel like they're helping the greater whole of the whole family. So if you can kind of communicate the whole idea of doing chores and doing different things in the home in such a way that they can kind of sense that they're a part of it, that they're actually contributing, not that they're doing some chore they don't want to do, but they're actually contributing to make the family work better. So, and they feel, and the way to do that is to embed this sense of connection, to be connected to them throughout the whole experience, rather than saying, okay, time for you to go do the dishes and then just send them off to do them by itself, or do your homework and then they go to the room all by themselves, or to their desks all by themselves, and they do this homework with no sense of connection. They don't feel that contribution. They don't feel a participation. There's no sense of team or working together there. It's more they're forced to do something which they resent, and then you're doing something else. So the way around that is to create the environment, the culture of working together, and then it's an art. Some families do this naturally and very easily. Other families, our parents weren't raised in this type of culture, so they have to kind of find. It's a learning experience in how to create the culture of contribution and community and participation within their family, right? So a lot of it depends on how we were raised, and sometimes if we were raised with having some of these needs met naturally, then we can pass them on very easily to our own children. But if some of these needs were not met in our own upbringing, we weren't exposed to different ways of having these needs met, then it becomes a learning experience and a challenge. And it doesn't happen always that fast. Sometimes we have to experiment with different ways into how to engage our children into the participation, how to say things and express our ideas in such a way that the child might feel like they're contributing. Next, we go into the need for attention, right? And this is a very clear and obvious one, right? And we all know the saying that where a naughty child acts out because they want to get some attention, right? And that attention is better than no attention at all. And this is entirely true. Attention is something that's incredibly important and crucial for the well-being of everyone. And the key word here is really your full attention, right? So it's a quality of attention you give your children. If you just give your children your half attention, then don't expect them to give you any more than half attention back. And don't expect them to give more than half attention back to any area of their life. Because remember, children are natural born models, right? And you are their primary role model. So they're going to model the behavior that you show. So if you're only giving them half attention, they'll likely only give that back. If you give them periods of full attention, they're going to learn how to engage their full attention as well. And again, you don't have to, it's impossible to give your children full attention all the time. So it's much better to give them full attention into smaller periods of time rather than giving them half attention or just a little bit of attention over long periods of time, right? So obviously there's a certain amount of our attention that is always engaged into our children, especially when we're with them. But we want to also reserve some time where we can actually just give them full attention, our entire attention. And this will nourish them on so many levels, and you'll see a lot of almost miraculous changes in their behaviors by using this. And we'll talk shortly about the method of democratic parenting called play attention time, which focuses specifically on this. So there's a saying that says energy flows where attention goes. And this is so true, right? So we want to be very aware about how and when we give attention, right? So, a lot of parents and people give attention based upon performance or production, right? And they reward good performance and good production versus just feeding the innate need for attention, right? So and remember, if you give attention for performance and production, your child will then develop their sense of self and their sense of self-worth around what they produce and how they perform. Okay, if you just give them your full attention just because you love them and give them periods of times of full attention for no other reason than you just love being with them and love giving them attention and paying attention to them, then their sense of self-worth will be more just around being an innate person, right? They'll feel worthy just as being a person rather than just feeling worthy based upon their production performance. And there's a big difference there, which is definitely worthy of consideration. Okay, and again, and then this is another important influence in the risks of peer pressure later on. Again, another reason why children engaged in peer pressure, negative peer pressure acts is that their need for attention is deficient to some degree. So they get that attention met from their peers rather than having the attention met at home. So that's why if you meet all these needs at home, your child won't seek to have these needs met elsewhere. Okay, so next we're going to go into the psychological well-being needs. Okay, here we go. So what are the needs around our psychological well-being? Well, the first one is our need for challenge, okay? And this really has to do around stimulation, right? We have to be careful around too much stimulation and too little. So, if a child isn't given enough stimulation, they're going to really feel disengaged and bored and not interested, okay? So, for example, if you're playing, a sport with a child and you're, maybe playing soccer with the child and you're a much better soccer player than them. If you give them too much stimulation, if you're just playing one-on-one and you're kind of back and forth, but if you're hogging the ball because you're a much superior player, you're giving them too much challenge that they're unable to meet, and they're going to feel discouraged. They're not going to feel interested. But if you give them too little, if you make it too easy for them, again, it's not going to be as fun for them. Okay, so you want to just find the balance there around stimulation. And this is all around, you have to pay attention to their age, what's age appropriate for them, and based upon their development, because different children develop different things at different rates, right? Some of them develop linguistic and communication abilities much quicker. Others develop physical agility and strength much quicker, right? Or some of them are better in reading and writing faster than others. So every child is different, and they'll develop at different rates. And we want to be attentive to the needs of each individual child and give them the appropriate amount of challenge in a balanced way, right? They need enough challenge to keep them interested and stimulated and excited and to feel like they're going somewhere, right? To feel like they're engaged in something. But too much will be discouraging. So it's all about balance, about being age appropriate and focusing again on their individual needs. The next psychological well-being is the need for autonomy. This is another very critical need, right? It was that we all have, right? We all need to have self-empowerment to feel like we have choice in the world around us, and personal power over life. It has a lot to do with around our self-identity and our self-confidence and our ability to be responsive to the needs in our life, to be responsible, right? So This need for autonomy is often thwarted by more authoritarian type parents, parents who hold the power, hold the or more the authority, and are telling the children what to do. And they will often use threats and punishment to coerce and manipulate the children into obedience. Right, so the child has very little choice in this situation. But eventually, their need for autonomy is so strong that they will begin to rebel. And children have, I've heard it many times where children will defy and rebel against a parent, even though they know the consequences might be severe punishments, but they'll still defy it because their need for autonomy is so strong that is what is pushing them. And we see that, now even in adults, where adults, the need for autonomy is so strong that they will risk their lives in order to have power and choice in more oppressed societies where the government might be more of a dictatorship and might be holding all the power. Eventually the people will eventually rebel because their need for autonomy is so strong. And so democratic parenting focuses a lot on meeting the need for autonomy by giving children the opportunity to explore being responsible with power and choice. So we allow children to make specific choices, and give them the opportunity to experience the responsibility of that choice. And we do this, for example, by using the natural consequences is a method we use this. So we allow them to experience the natural consequences of their choices. And the difference between a natural consequence and a punishment style, coercive consequence, is that a natural consequence is like, what would happen if we didn't interfere, right? What is the natural consequence of a child's action? Now, sometimes there are very clear natural emotional consequences to their actions, and here we have to be very careful and very centered ourselves and balanced ourselves so that we don't, so that we can help our child, learn from the natural consequences of their actions without feeling overly triggered ourselves. So I talk about this in great length in my book, Democratic Parenting. It's way too much information to go through in this webinar, but you can read this entire chapter on natural consequences and how to use them and when to use them, because sometimes it's entirely inappropriate to use natural consequences. Sometimes there are great opportunities to use them. So we have to be careful and discerning about when to use these. So autonomy is a very important need to meet for our children. Now, saying this, the problem that permissive style parents often run into is they give their children too much choice. Okay, and when they have too much choice, they have too much options to them, and they can sometimes get confused about the right one to choose, and they might feel overwhelmed, and their attention will have a hard time figuring out what to do. So again, choice, we have to be balanced around that. We don't want to give too much choice, like it's overwhelming. But we just want to give enough of it. So we have to be discerning, and we know better as parents. We're the ones who actually hold the power. So we want to give the children the opportunity to experience what it's like to be responsible for power by giving them the choice when it's appropriate, and then and maintaining a strong boundary and direction when it's time for you to hold the cards and to make choices for them. Okay. So, and this is a great example of the difference between, say, authoritarian style parenting, where they hold all the power and don't give their children enough choice, and then permissive parents, where they give the children all the power and they don't have the power, and the children have too much choice. And then the democratic style parenting is the balance between them, where both the parent and the child get to have power and choice, and that creates an environment for respect and trust to really flourish. Another important psychological well-being need is the need for creative expression. Okay, so I really contemplated for a while, what should I call this need? Creative expression or fun? Because we need to have fun and we need to express ourselves creatively. But then soon I figured they're kind of like one and the same. But the reason why I call it creative expression is that fun can oftentimes be kind of, we can label a lot of things fun, which are oftentimes not the healthiest thing for us. So sometimes even indulgences, which can go too far, can seem fun because of the pleasure and stimulation that can happen to them, that we can experience within them, but it's not always the creative expression. For example, sitting down and watching, overstimulating, exciting movies can feel fun because of the emotions that are being triggered, and thus the chemical releases in our body from the images and sounds and all the simulations coming through the screen, so it can feel like fun, but it's not actually a creative expression. It's not actually fulfilling a deep fundamental need. But if we're having fun with people, in real life and playing around, and we're able to express ourselves in a creative way, then that is fun, right? So we're talking here about the type of fun that we experience when we're actively engaged with our world and our environment. And this meets a deep psychological need. Again, this could have easily fallen under the social connection needs, but I put it under a psychological well-being need because it's just so important for people to have need. And in my clinical setting, I see a lot of patients that come in, both children and adults, with different mental health issues. And so I've seen over a while how a lot of time when I'm working with them, I'll look at which needs might be unmet for them. And I work a lot of them with the physical well-being needs because of the nature of the work and the medicine that I treat. But at the same time, I help them around the social connection and the psychological well-being needs too, because again, I can help them regain physical balance by meeting all their physical well-being needs. But if their need for creative expression, if they're not having any fun in their life, or they're not connected and they don't have many friends around them, then they're not going to feel good, and then their health is still going to suffer, right? So these needs are all encompassing. And and they're all interdependent and all interconnected, and we can't ignore any one of them. If we do ignore just one of them, well, that single need can really kind of drive the child or anyone into all types of behavior. So it's a matter of play, right? Play is just so important for children, and that's how they learn the best, is when they're playing, and it's just a natural thing for them to do. So we want to create opportunities where they can play as much as possible. Art is a great way for creative expression to come through. Recreation, different ways to play and rejuvenate and have fun, right? So creative expression, a very important need. And if it's thwarted, if a child doesn't get to play enough, doesn't get to have enough fun on a regular basis, then we will see the effects on their behavior. Predictability, okay, this is another important psychological need, okay, and this is inherently tied with the need for information that we talked about in the social connection need. Predictability is really a matter of consistency, right, of knowing what's going to happen around congruency, to feel that the world is congruent. And this is important. Again, this is also entirely linked with the physical well-being need of security, to know what's going to happen, that there's congruency in the world, that it's safe and secure, that they can trust that things are going to happen in a certain way. Okay, a great way to meet this need is by developing different rhythms in your family, in your home, in your community, so your child can anticipate what's going to happen next. And this is a fantastic way to help us go through different transition periods. And oftentimes it's the transition times which are the hardest for parents to deal with, right? Transition time from, again, from after dinner to bedtime, or from morning to getting out the door, or from play time to eating time. These are different transition periods which are often difficult for children, and behavioral issues can come up here. So if we can meet the need for predictability by giving information to the child that this transition is coming up, then then that allows for the rhythm to take root, and they can anticipate it and make it much easier. So again, it meets the need for stability too, which is inherently connected with the need for security. Next, we have the need for processing, okay? This is the final psychological need. This is the 15th need, perhaps one of the most important needs for all of us to have met, especially in the modern day, because oftentimes we don't take the time nor the space to actually process. What we're talking about here is processing our experiences, our feelings, information, and anything we take in, okay? So, we live in an age where things are so busy, things are so fast, so we receive so many communications, from our telephone to the internet or emails, Facebook, chats, from getting communications from all over the place. And then there's, where there's all types of information which is being put in front of our eyes through billboards and through advertisements, through commercials. Everywhere we look, there's information and stuff that's being just bombarded onto our senses, into our attention.
and we need to process all this. If we don't process it all, then we get overwhelmed by it. And for children, their senses are even more sensitive than us. So we have to understand that their need to process their experiences, their feelings, information is very important. Okay, here I'm talking about experience. If they have a very busy day, they need to have some time, some downtime to process it all. For example, when they come home from school, giving them some time just to process all that they did at school, because school is very there's a lot of information that happens there, a lot of things and experiences, a lot of social interactions that happen that children need to process. So we want to give them a chance to process this. Feelings too, any feelings of anger, upset, hurts that can happen, feelings of betrayal from friends or family members, or any type of emotions that can come up. If those aren't processed, they just stay there. And if they just stay there, they're going to simmer there. And eventually it's going to blow up into a big tantrum or something, right? The next time they get a broken cookie or something happens, they might have a huge blow up because there were some simmering feelings, some unprocessed hurts and emotions that were just waiting for a chance to process. And that's one way we process feelings and emotions, through crying, through tantrums. Different ways to heal these types of feelings are ways that we process them. Same thing with processing information. We need to kind of take some stuff in. If we hear different stuff, we need to take it in, process it. And children need to do this a lot. We see this when children are exposed to different types of information, sometimes in movies, or they hear something, or they see something. We can often see that they might process it through a type of symbolic play, where they might start to engage in a type of play where they're actually reenacting what they saw or what they heard. And we see children will sometimes say things that they heard, and we wonder, well, where did they hear that? Or I didn't know that they were listening, right? Well, oftentimes children are listening a lot more than what we think, and they're taking in a lot of the information from the environment a lot more than we often give them credit for. So they need, again, time to process this, anything they take in. So this is an incredibly important need, the need for processing. Very important for our entire psychological well-being, because if we don't take time to process it, then all this stuff just stays within, which is just kind of simmering inside our minds, and creates like a filter that more is unable to come through. So anything that we take in, we have to process it all the way through in order to make room to take in more information, to experience more, and to respond better. So we need to allow for the processing to happen. We want to give presence just by being present with our child, and for allowing the time, creating the space, and to be patient with our children. We don't want to rush them through processing, right? Everyone processes things at their own time and pace, and to try and rush them along is just like trying to pull a plant in order to make it grow faster. It just simply doesn't work. So we need to be patient with our children. Okay, so in the book Democratic Parenting, I talk about 14 methods. And these are the 14 democratic parenting methods. And these are specifically chosen because they meet all of these 15 needs that we talked about. A lot of them will meet a variety of needs. I'm just going to go through them quickly to explain how these meet a variety of different needs. Let's talk about the first one, which is natural giggles. This is just a method in order to encourage natural giggles, natural laughter to come out. And this meets many needs. This, most importantly, it meets our need for connection. It also meets our need for processing, because laughter is a great way to just process things, right? Process intensity, pressure, tension, that kind of thing. Okay? It also meets the need for creative expression, because sometimes we'll start laughing and playing and making fun of all kinds of silly and fun things, okay? And it's a need for attention, because when we're laughing on something, the attention is very clear and open and focused on the specific thing we're laughing about, okay? Media control. So media control basically means around just controlling the exposure to various types of media, like television, video games, radio, internet, cell phones, movies, these types of things. And this is really important needs in order to meet the needs for information and for challenge, specifically not giving them too much information and not too much of a stimulation, so they're just challenged to process enough of it, right? So this helps meet all those needs. Play attention time is one of the most powerful techniques democratic parenting has. And this is basically scheduled time where you play with your child and give them their full attention, let them take the lead and play and just kind of follow along as much as possible. This meets so many needs. It meets the needs for affection, it meets their need for security, it meets their need for connection, it meets their needs for encouragement, and very much so it meets their needs for attention, it meets their needs for challenge as well, because usually you're doing something and playing in a certain way. It meets their needs for creative expression, and it meets their needs for autonomy because they're taking the lead in play. And oftentimes they'll use your good attention during play attention time. They'll use this opportunity to process feelings or information as well. Self-directed play is another method. It's the same as play attention time, but the child usually does this by themselves and they direct their own play. And it meets a lot of the same needs, except the need for attention is not there, but it definitely meets the need for processing, the need for autonomy, and the need for creative expression are some of the primary needs that are met through here. The need for the method of connective communication. This is a very powerful tool that we have in our democratic parenting toolbox, where we can communicate to our children in such a way that bridges connection. So it's great to reach through disconnects when our child is obviously disconnected to us or from their environment or from their world around them. We can use this to regain the connection or to encourage cooperation with them. And this meets a variety of needs. It meets their need for emotional affection because the way we speak and we communicate, we have a very loving tone. And also physical affection because we will often use touch by putting our hand on their shoulder or touching them a little bit to help bridge the connection. It meets their needs for connection, meets their needs for information, meets the needs for encouragement because a lot of the times we're encouraging them with our words. Meets their needs for attention because we're very attentive when we're using it. And it meets their needs for predictability as well because they know that we're there for them to communicate and that we're going to be consistent in our loving communication with them. Setting limits, setting kind limits specifically, is a democratic parenting method. And this meets a variety of needs. It meets their needs specifically for safety and security because we set limits that keep them safe, keep themselves safe from the world and also safe from themselves and by making mistakes. It also meets the needs for autonomy because we can set specific limits within which they can explore their autonomy. They can't go outside those limits, and it's important to keep very strong limits, and that again enhances their sense of security, enhances their need for predictability as well because they know that these limits are always stable and strong. They can't go outside them. But then at the same time, they know that within those limits, they can express their autonomy and they can explore different challenges and explore their expression and that kind of thing. So primarily setting limits meets their need for predictability. It also provides wonderful opportunities for them to process a variety of things, especially feelings and that kind of stuff. Adult-to-adult listening time is a method we talk about in democratic parenting. This is a method that you do with other adults. And this is a way to have your needs met so that you can get affection and attention. And it's really time where you can process your own feelings and your own experiences and have someone give you attention, full attention. And it's also an opportunity for you to express yourself. So this meets a lot of our needs as parents, which then gives us the fuel, the emotional fuel and stamina and wherewithal to go back to our children meet their needs, right? Because we need to be patient as parents in order to really help our children meet all these needs. Otherwise, we're going to burn ourselves out very fast. So we need to take care of ourselves, process our own responsibilities and burdens and stress so that we can really be there, in a more of a non-reactive state for our children so we can respond to them more intelligently and to bridge connection, and we can focus on the deeper needs rather than reacting to the superficial behaviors that are driving us nuts, right? So the more we meet our own underlying needs, we can be present and aware for our children, the less reactive we'll be to their own superficial behavior. Family meetings is a great method that meets a variety of needs. It meets the needs for connection again, meets the needs for information, meets the needs for encouragement. Also, it's very great for me, the need for contribution, because the children also have equal power more or less within family meetings. Also, the need for attention, because attention is shared during this time. The need for autonomy as well. Okay, so these are some of the needs met by this method. Natural consequences. This is a great method, again, which I spoke about earlier, and this meets a variety of needs. Primarily, it meets the need for autonomy and challenge, okay, because it gives children a chance to explore the natural consequences of their autonomous choices and of exploring different challenges that they choose to undertake. Okay, so it also, by using natural consequences, a lot of it is based around encouraging our child to then deal with the consequences that come up, to become aware of them and to respond to them. So we want to encourage our children through the natural consequences. So as such, we do that. It's also great to meet the child's need for information. And this is, again, natural, real information that they're experiencing. They're going to learn the natural consequences to choices they make. And that gives them incredible information to allow them to be a lot more effective and successful in their lives later on. And then, of course, the method of healthy nutrition we talk about in the book. And this very obviously meets the need for healthy nutrition. And then we talk about exercise and outdoor play in the book, which obviously meets the needs for exercise and creative expression. And then sleep and routines, and developing smart sleep routines to make the transition more easily, to make sure the child gets adequate sleep, obviously meets the needs for good sleep and for predictability. Okay, so these are the main 15 needs we talked about. We talked about the methods of democratic parenting. And in my book, Democratic Parenting, there's a chapter on each of these methods I went through, so it goes through a lot more detail. And we talk about these 15 needs are not discussed in the book. I just talk about a lot more about the stress in these methods. But this is what this webinar is to kind of give you an overview of these 15 needs. With this webinar, you're also going to get a download, a one-page kind of download with all these 15 needs on it. You can use this like a checklist. So, as you're trying to figure out how to navigate your child's behavior, and you want to see which needs might be at play here, you can use this printout that you're going to get access to, and you can kind of go through each one and question which ones might be engaged in the situation here. And that will give you a lot of insight. And you'll find that oftentimes there's multiple needs at play. But the great thing about using the democratic parenting methods is that you can actually meet a variety of needs with just one method. Like play attention time, for example, as I mentioned, needs a whole variety of needs. So we can really kind of we can take care of a lot of things with one specific method. Okay, so that's it for the main presentation of this webinar. I just want to mention to everyone too that just coming up next week is going to be released the ADD and ADHD transformation program. This is a home transformation program I've been working on for years now to help parents find a way to overcome the behaviors that come with ADD and ADHD naturally without medication. So this whole program walks you through step by step. You just follow along and you'll see the transformation happen in the behavior, so your child can focus better, can concentrate their attention, and will be less reactive and hyperactive. So you'll get more information soon about that. Watch your email inbox for details about this course, or go to our website after June 14th at parentlearningclub.com, and you'll get more information about that. Okay, one question I've got is how do I handle my 2-year-old who throws things all the time, even when I tell him not to? 2.5-year-old. 2.5-year-old is throwing things. I tell them not to, they still throw things, and when they get aggressive and angry. Okay, that's a great question. So in order to answer that question, what we want to do is look at what of the underlying fundamental needs might be at play. Okay, so if we look at these 15 needs, okay, we see which ones might be at play here. Again, if we react to the actual action, the behavior, and scold them or punish them for throwing things, again, we're not addressing the deep underlying need. With a 2.5-year-old, okay, their need for information is such it's impossible for them to remember not to throw things, right? They don't understand the rules. They don't understand the concepts around. They're just too developmentally small to understand that. And what they are doing, they're trying to express to you that there are some deeper needs that they need met. It could be their need for processing, okay? They need to process stress. Oftentimes, it sounds like they're exhibiting some type of aggression, they're upset, they have some emotions, they need to process that, okay? So they might just need to have a big cry or a big tantrum without having their feelings, coddled or being forced or rushed back to composure. That's the last thing we want to do if a child's exhibiting some intense emotion. We don't want to rush them back to composure. Instead, we want them to process their feelings and express themselves. So we want to look at that need. It could be also a need for predictability. Perhaps they just kind of got rushed through some transitions and they felt like they were kind of left behind. They found themselves in a new circumstance that was unpredictable, and they're feeling really insecure. They might just, out of frustration, they might just throw something. Okay, so that might be another piece there, and that might be part and parcel of a sense of disconnect. Okay, if they feel rushed through, then they might feel disconnected. So again, we want to meet their need for connection, and then that will probably help. So these are some ideas. Like, it's impossible for me to tell without knowing the full experience and without kind of living with you for a few days and seeing how the circumstances progress to the point of the child throwing these toys to actually know what needs might be there, because there's so many factors involved, right? As you can see from these 15 needs and the 3 fundamental reasons for behaviors, there's lots of factors involved in a child's behavior. So we want to go through these needs and look at which ones might be at play. And what you might find is that they're not always so clear cut. So you can kind of experiment with one and see if that changes anything. And if it doesn't, you might see that there might be some other need that's at play. So thank you so much for your time and your attention. And until I see you on the next webinar, every single day of your life, give your child all your love. Give yourself that same love too. And together, we truly can build a brighter future.